is there a habit in your life that you would like to change? Trying to eliminate a bad habit almost never works. The key is to replacing it. And in order to replace any habit, it's essential to understand how they work and what it is you can do to step yourself into a change around that area. In the next less than 10 minutes, we're going to look at how do we fall into bad habits to begin with, and what is a 3-step process we can engage to change that habit at any time. My name is Tally. I'm a life and personal development coach, and I work with leaders to create lives of overflowing impact in the world that are centered in a place of joy. All about getting you aligned to who you most truly are, get you firing on all cylinders, and get you creating a life that you love living. So today we are in a series all about creating healthy habits in your life, and today we're talking about how is it that you begin to shift habits. Like when you have things that you do repetitively, and this is an interesting fact, over 40% of what we do on a daily basis are habits that we have, habitual things that we just naturally do, things that we can do on autopilot, things that are just in our routine. Some of them steer us in directions and get results that we really love, and some of them not so much. So how is it that we can look at what are the things that we're doing repeatedly over time? We're creating this like consistent action in our lives, and what are the results that those are getting us? And a lot of them we already know that sitting down on the couch at the end of the day with ice cream every time we turn on the show, that's not a great habit in terms of getting us into a place of health that we want. Or maybe it's, that we find ourselves complaining a lot more than we wish that we did. Maybe we want to be more grateful. Like what are things that we know that we do on a pretty regular basis? We know that as soon as we get around those certain people, we start gossiping or complaining. We know that as soon as we get to this point in our day, maybe it's a time trigger that sets off, I always do this thing, but it doesn't give me a result that I like. So there are different triggers in our day, in our lives, that will trigger certain actions or habitual responses. So it could be location, it could be time of day, it could be certain people that we get around. Maybe it's an emotional state. When we get into this emotional state, we always do this thing. When we're bored, we get online and we start shopping. Or when we're stressed out, we find ourselves snacking. Or like sometimes it's an emotional state. So looking at what is the triggering event that kicks off a habit that we don't like. When this happens, when I get around these people, when I get to this certain place, when I have this certain feeling, this is what I tend to do repeatedly. So what is the cue for you? What's the emotional trigger, or not even just emotional trigger? What is the trigger? Because it could be location or time of day. And then what is the routine? What is the habit that you then do? Like what is the action that you take every time you get into that place that you don't like? What's the bad habit? Every time I just need a break from my desk, I get it up and go outside and smoke a cigarette. I don't want to be smoking anymore. Like what are the things that create the habits that you don't like? So looking at the cue is the first thing. So what is the cue for you? What is the habit that you would like to break or to shift into something else? And what is it? It's important to look at what you're getting from it. What is the reward that you're getting from doing that thing? Because we don't do things unless there's some need that it's meeting. So everything that we do, and we talk about this when we do the desire cards, but everything that we do is being fueled by, it's meeting some need for you. So if you can identify what is the trigger for you, really see the action that you don't like or that it's not serving you, and what is it that you're getting out of it? Because if you can look at the trigger and you can look at the reward, the number 1 and number 3 in this process, if you can look at those things and you can keep those two things consistent, you can change out the action in the middle that's getting you a result you don't like. So that's the key. Just being like, I'm just not going to do this anymore. It's really hard to just break habits because there are triggers that are in place. There are those cues that happen that lead you into it. And then there is a reward that you are getting from doing this thing. And so in order to really have a shift in changing a habit that you don't like, it's really helpful if you can keep that cue and you can keep the reward the same. So let me give you an example. Every afternoon, this one client gets up from his desk and he takes a break and he walks down to his cafeteria and gets a cookie. And he's like, man, I gotta stop. I eat cookies every single day. It makes me more, it has like more lethargy. I'm gaining weight. It's like too much sugar in it. I don't need to be having cookies every day. But just stopping doing that was really, really hard for him. And so what he looked at was, what is the cue? So afternoon, mid-afternoon, it's like halfway between lunch and leaving for the day. He's just like, needs to get up and move around. The cue was like mid-afternoon. It was like around a certain time, I think around 3. And the reward was, it wasn't just the cookie. What he realized was he needed to get up and move. It helped his brain be able to refocus. It was a time to connect socially. He was able to connect with some people, and then it helped him come back to his desk and be able to focus in better. And so really what the reward was a break and social connection and movement. And so he realized he could accomplish most of what he wanted without getting the cookie. So he kept the habit that he shifted was he still got up around the same time in the afternoon. He still went to the same place. He just chose to get an apple instead of a cookie. And that was an easy way to shift it for him. He still had the cue in place. He still had the main rewards in place. And so for you, if you're thinking about, what is some habit that you find yourself in that you'd love to shift? So look at the cue. Is it a location? Is it a time of day? Maybe you want to have more gratitude in your life. Maybe you find yourself just kind of like, you want to have more gratitude in your day. And you're like, how do I start working that in? If there is a trigger that you can create. So even more specific than I'm gonna list 10 things that I'm grateful for every day at lunch. If you can get really specific into a cue, like as soon as I close my laptop, I'm gonna say 10 things that I'm grateful for. I actually have one client that every time he sits down to his computer, he reads his vision declarations. We've created a vision declaration for every area of his life. And so he's got 8 mantras, like statements, one over each area of his life. And every time he sits down to his computer, he reads that. And probably has it mostly memorized now, but he says his vision declarations. So that's his cue. Like as soon as he sits down to his computer, he says his vision declarations. Every time that you close your laptop and break for lunch, you could do 10 things that you're grateful for. For me, I already had making my bed as something that I do every day, and so I've started putting my intention every day. What is it that I'm committed to creating today? I do that while I make my bed. So it's like that's the cue for me. Now we're going to talk about another strategy, bumping up new habits along with other ones. We'll do that maybe tomorrow. We'll talk about that tomorrow, I think. But really powerful to have a cue, something that as soon as you get to that place, as soon as you sit down in that chair, as soon as you close that laptop, as soon as you brush your teeth, whatever, like some kind of cue to be able to shift into creating a habit that actually steers you more into what it is you want to create. So looking at the cue, looking at the reward, keep those the same and see if you can change out the thing that isn't working, the habit that you don't really like. Change it out for something that's going to serve you, that's going to actually steer you into something that you want and that you'll appreciate and you'll enjoy. So have fun with that. I would love to hear the habits that you guys are creating, some things that you're shifting out of and into, and I'd love to hear the specifics. What's the cue for you? What's the action that you're changing? And what is the reward? What is it that you're getting out of that? So would love to hear it in the comments or message me directly, but have fun with that one today. Changing out habits that aren't serving you for ones that do. And we will continue on our series of creating habits in your life that steer you into what it is you want to create. And we'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Blessings, everybody.